Welcome to New England Beer Buddies. I'm Garrett,
And I'm Mark.
and you've tuned in for our first episode of what we hope will be a fun and educational experience and project about beer in general and the beers and breweries in the New England area, which is where we both live. I wanted to knock out a quick little disclaimer before we get started. Not sure if we need it, but definitely this is alcohol-related content. Follow all the laws relating to alcohol in your state. We don't encourage anyone to consume alcohol if they're not legally of age to do so. And at some point, we may get into different topics about brewing, the process, breweries, all that type of stuff. Again, if you decide to dive into that, know what the rules in your area are that apply to you and certainly abide by them. And of course, consume responsibly. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark for a second, and we'll talk about kind of what this whole project is going to be all about.
Yeah, so originally we're just going to start off focusing on tasting different beers, from the New England area. But then as, the thing just so progresses, we hope to do some maybe more exciting things like visit breweries, talk about specific beer-related topics, maybe possibly looking into doing some home brewing of our own. So yeah, that's kind of what we're hoping to do with this program.
Yep, and we'll see where it all takes us. Today, what we have up is we kind of came up with this idea of a porter pour-off. Basically, what we did is Mark and I each picked a couple of local porters here. 3 are from New Hampshire, 1's from Mass. We'll get into the details about them in a bit. But basically, picture it like a college basketball bracket, right? We're going to each try a porter of each other's that we brought, kind of do a quick little rating of them. Hopefully we can get to some sort of a consensus on a winner between those two. So we'll do that for 2 different pairings here. Don't know how big the bracket will be yet, but we'll just kind of keep doing this until we have a decent selection, and then we'll crown our porter, I guess. Not to say it's the best one ever, but just out of what we sampled, kind of what the winner was. So I suppose with that, if you want to get into the couple that you brought with you a little bit, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I brought the American Porter Dark Ale from Stoneface Brewing in Newington, New Hampshire. It's a brewery I like quite a bit. I have enjoyed a lot of the beers that I've gotten from there before. Haven't had this one yet, but I'm looking forward to trying it. And I'm also brought a Phone Home Peanut Butter Porter from Night Shift Brewing in Everett, Mass. I'm also looking forward to trying that one because Night Shift is one of my favorite breweries in Massachusetts.
Cool. And the 2 I brought here, the Kelsen Brewing Company Draken Robust Porter, as well as a 603 Coffee Cake Porter. Both of these are up in Londonderry, New Hampshire. So basically, I've had both of these. I know, Mark, these are both new to you, correct, for yours? Yeah. I've had both of these before. The coffee cake is a little outside of what I normally would like in terms of my wheelhouse. So we'll see how it stacks up against the peanut butter. And then the Draken I'm a little biased. This is a big favorite of mine out of Kelsen, so we'll see how that does as well. And our general idea for today, we're going to stack the 2 darker porters up against each other, your standard porters, so to speak, and then the sweeter flavored porters with the peanut butter and the coffee cake up against each other as well. So we're going to cut the video for a second, have some sort of a transition, and get into pouring and get the project going. And we're back. So we've done our pouring. We're working from our left to our right. So the first beer up is the Kelsen, the Draken Robust Porter here. And then after that, trying to keep it straight visually so I don't forget which is which, is the Stoneface Brewing American Porter. So we're going to do those 2. So left, right. So we'll start with the Draken. Cheers.
Yep, cheers. Yep. Obviously, it looks very much like a classic porter with the very, very dark color. Definitely has a bit of very forward bitterness, but it's relevant to the style and very tasty.
So this is the part where I'm gonna just out and out say that although I greatly enjoy beer, I am not the. I don't think either of us are beer sommeliers, so to speak. Um, of course, I agree appropriate to the style. You can pretty much see what the color is here. It's kind of exactly what you'd expect. I don't think we're going to see too much variation there. I do like that bitterness that's coming through a lot. Don't always see that. I know we're going to take a big departure when we go towards the peanut butter, but yeah. So I like the bitterness. It is a little toasty almost, bready,
Yep.
toasty kind of. But
Yep.
again, that's kind of what I'd expect.
Yep.
As far as hops and things, not too much for me to talk about there.
Yeah.
There's nothing fruity, floral, what have you.
Yeah.
And I guess the body and the length of the flavor, to me anyways, it sticks around it quite a bit actually. You can still have a pretty somewhat sweet aftertaste right about now. And that's probably
Yeah.
like 30 seconds out or something like that. So it does stay there. Doesn't not really drying my mouth out or anything like
Yeah.
that. But.
No, I think it's good you mentioned like the sweet aftertaste because it's definitely like especially in the first sip I had there was the bitterness that was forward, but as I had a couple more sips and you definitely also get sort of a sort of the malted a little bit of malty sweetness, a bit more of that. It's very very well balanced. It's definitely a very delicious beer. It has kind of all the elements, the little bit of the bitterness, but it's balanced out by the flavor of the malts. I almost kind of felt there was maybe a bit of sort of a caramel or something feeling
there's
to it.
something like that.
There's definitely a bit of a sweetness in there too.
Yeah, I'd say that's caramelly for sure. But I like that bitterness up front. So I don't know if you have anything to add, but I think we talked about a lot of the major things. Color we can see. We didn't really talk much about aroma, but that's fine. Talked a lot about the flavor of the malt, etc. And I gotta say, yeah, absolutely well balanced. I like what's going on there with that shift in the flavors happening well after the fact. So get a thumbs up there. I'm gonna make a couple notes on my sheet. I think we'll both do the same, but we'll keep everything rolling and condense it so you don't have to watch us do that. And then we'll move on to the stone face in a moment.
Yeah.
All right, we're back again with you guys. So now we're moving on to the Stoneface Brewing Company American Porter Dark Ale that Mark brought up from there, and that is from Newington, New Hampshire, that brewery. So here we are. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
So it stands out to me right off the bat. This is a lot more chocolatey than the Dragon, or at least I think so. And the last one was a little more caramelly. I'm getting a little more chocolatiness here. Other than that, I'd still say, we're talking the same porter color as it should be. Also wanted to just mention, I know heads on these looked like nothing pretty much across the bar. That's of course not too uncommon with porters anyways, but that's also because we poured and then set everything up kind of thing. So it did have a minute to die down. So that is what it is. We don't have to wear on that for now.
Yeah.
What are your initial impressions, Mark?
Yeah, it's another very good one though. I feel it's not quite as good as the Kelsen. It's a little bit. I feel it's not quite as well balanced. I feel the bitter flavor. Again, it's not overpowering. Still a really good beer, but not quite as well balanced out with sort of the chocolatey notes. I think that you mentioned.
Right, and one thing I will say, it's a little different between the two as well, is with the Kelsen, it was bitter up front, and then we got that sweetness to the end, which was really cool. Neat little transition there. For me, this is staying bitter a little bit longer. I like it a lot still. I like the bitterness and kind of like a chocolatey, woody
Yeah.
kind of bitterness to it. Don't know how to describe it too well, but it's certainly good. It's a little drier in my mouth, I think. I don't think I'm imagining that. It's a little less sticky, a little more dry, but yeah, another excellent choice in my book. Anyway, it's just different. They're both really good.
Yeah. And another good thing I think I didn't mention on the last one, but I want to mention is like the mouthfeel and stuff is really good. It's heavy. You definitely know you're drinking a porter, but it's not it's not too far in that direction. It's very it's kind of it's got a weight to it when you're swilling it around in your mouth. It's really really well done.
Agreed. All right, so I think we're gonna take some notes again. So we'll probably clip this in and out, unless you have anything else you want to add before we do that.
No, not really. I think I'm good.
All right, we're back. So we're on to beer number 3 at this point. Before we get right into that with the Night Shift Brewing selection, I just wanted to point out something we're doing a little differently. Last time we did both pours of both beers and had them out in front of us for a bit, and we decided rather than have the second beer kind of sit, that we do them separately. One pour, stop it, pick up another one, and go again. So slight change, but toss it over to Mark for a second to talk about the Night Shift again.
So Night Shift Brewing is located in Everett, Mass. I really like them. I feel like they're generally more known for IPAs, but they do a lot of different styles. Pretty much, everything. Most of what they do is really, really good. I haven't had this particular one before, but I've had a few peanut butter porters before, and my feelings on them are a little bit mixed. But I really like what Night Shift does, so I'm sort of anxious to try, their take on this style.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. You definitely get the peanut butter even in the aroma.
Oh yeah.
Well, in all, I'd say it's. I feel like this is pretty well done. Again, it's one of those things where, I'm not sure I would prefer this to a regular porter, but I feel it's the best one of the style I've had, because I feel like the pumpkin, it's not pumpkin. I was thinking of pumpkin spice. The same sort of thing. But the peanut butter is. It's not over. I don't feel at least that it's overpowering. And the other thing I've kind of noticed in the other peanut butter porters that I've had, you kind of get there's almost like this something about the flavor of peanut butter which comes across as very grainy when it kind of when you're drinking it. And this one it wasn't. I'm not feeling that as so much. But overall, I would say this is pretty decent. Even though like there's the peanut butter aspect, the rest of it, kind of the underlying body of the beer is a pretty solid porter. So I definitely think it's pretty good. Would have again. Not sure if it's as good as the other 2 porters you've tried here today.
I agree for the most part. Mark and I tend to have some similar tastes, so I'm sorry if it sounds like we parrot each other at times, but hopefully, we're both being honest here. So I would definitely agree. Again, we're going to do the coffee cake in a minute, but that those non-standard porters are not my favorite thing in the world, but we're giving two of them a shot today. But I agree. They didn't overdo it. Something I was a little bit concerned with. I know you mentioned Night Shift. They do a lot of IPAs and some kind of out there stuff, and not always my cup of tea. And sometimes it's a little over the top in some of those other types of beer that they do, but I feel they really kept this a lot more balanced than what I was anticipating. So part of that's my bias, and they certainly did a decent job with the balance and all that here. Let's see if I have other notes. Some of these areas. Yeah, that's excellent. If I were to be a peanut butter porter kind of guy, this would be it from what I've had so far. So definitely solid choice.
Yeah, I also feel it's one of those things where on the aftertaste, it's not overpowering. You still get, sort of the hints of the peanut butter, but kind of by the time it finishes, I feel it's a lot more restrained.
Yeah, and I'd say the feel of it, the mouthfeel, it's very smooth. It's not as sticky as the Draken was, for example, with the caramel flavor and kind of the stickiness in your mouth after. It's just kind of more, I don't know if this isn't a technical term, but more mellow and smooth to me anyways. Almost, I guess a little more velvety from my perspective anyways. Your mileage may vary, but yeah, definitely a great choice. Glad we found it. Night Shift's not really, like you said, not typically known for this type of thing. But they did a great job with it, so definitely one worth checking out. I guess we're gonna take our notes on this one, and then we'll do the same thing again. We'll pause and we'll be back with our last one of the day. So we're back again. Final beer of the list. So right now we're about to dive into the 603 Coffee Cake Porter. Kind of an interesting one. I've had it at 603 before. I'll admit I had a bunch of other stuff of all different types when I was there. So I kind of wanted to try this one, on its own, so to speak. But this should have a lot going on with it. Cinnamon, coffee, vanilla, etc. We'll see how it all stacks up, but that's the whole coffee cake thing, right? Rather than just one additional flavor, it should really be a mix of a lot of different sweetness, and we'll see how that all goes. But that's what's up on the list now. When we wrap up this one, we'll kind of do our sheets, go into our deliberations, and then after that, we'll be coming back with who won out of these pairings.
Yeah.
So, and with that, I suppose, cheers.
Cheers. And the aroma definitely smells a lot sweeter than the other ones. Definitely, it's definitely get coffee cake, I guess, but almost more like a fruit coffee cake.
Yeah, it's almost got if I were to pick a fruit, it's almost like cherry-ish.
Yes, yes.
Somewhere in there. It's but that coffee's coming through nicely as well. So there's an interesting mix there, just in the aroma. That comes through a little bit throughout the beer as well, but then I think you are getting a little bit of almost the vanilla as well. So I think it might even be almost like the coffee plus the vanilla flavor to it that's kind of giving me that, almost that cherryness, if that makes sense. But
and the other the other thing we were talking about was that, as opposed to the other beers that we had, this one, the foam died down really, really, really quickly. Not that porters are supposed to be really, heady beers, but this one, almost looks like it could be like Coke or something, at this point.
It's very still right now.
Yeah.
And even if I look at, hold it still for a second. Yeah, even if I just kind of look at the general carbonation that's coming up at this point, I know I just moved it a bit, but it's moderate, I guess. Yeah. And the foam was it was interesting. That foam did have that caramel kind of color to it. Pretty much everything else we've had, the head was pretty much more or less whitish, light brownish. And this was definitely a richer, more golden color almost. Definitely a good beer, but it's definitely not your traditional porter.
Right.
I don't know. Feel free to disagree, but there's almost there's a lot of things going on flavor-wise. There's almost a smokiness as well in there somewhere. But in terms of how it lingers, it's actually pretty clean for after the palate effect. The last one we did, if I can circle back a little bit, we did the night shift, and I wasn't quite sure if it was my palate from, we've been drinking water, but in between, but
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure if it was my palate from drinking a few of them, that it seemed like the aftertaste was a bit more persistent and it became a bit more hoppy. I think as the malt and the peanut butter kind of went away, that kind of came out, which from night shift, I'm not overly surprised to see that
Yeah.
happen. But definitely this guy, I'd say it's a very clean
Yeah.
aftertaste, but it's still there. But it's a very like crisp kind of aftertaste to it. It's nice. A lot of different flavors going on there. I'm
Yeah.
not always a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I'll be fair about it. There's
Yeah.
a lot going on.
I do feel, it's in terms of it being a porter, I feel it kind of differs from that style. I'm not getting much of, a maltiness or that sort of thing. I feel that kind of the sweet, the various, whether it's the cherry or the vanilla, the flavors of the coffee cake, I feel, are a bit overwhelming. But I do feel in some ways it does kind of work a little bit.
It's almost closer to a brown, though. In
Yes.
Some ways.
Yes.
I don't know how you then get it to be that porter dark,
Right.
shade wise, but it's almost in that regard. I'd say it's almost closer to just a brown ale of some kind, where you get more of that
Yeah.
sticky, sweety kind of taste as you go down, versus a porter with a little more of the bitterness and darkness to it. Although the color is certainly still dark.
Yeah, it's something, sometimes you'll hear about, a beer, whether it's a porter or a stout, be referred to as a dessert beer if it has like particularly unusual and, sweet flavors. And this is something where I feel like it works more if you think of it as that,
Yeah.
as instead of as a porter.
Sure. Yeah. If you were out for a right, this would I know we haven't really got into it. We have this little cheat sheet guide that we found somewhere, but one of the things is pairing notes, right? And
Yeah.
to your comment of it really being a dessert beer, sure. All these other beers before that, maybe the peanut butter aside, you might have to think about what you pair that with. But everything before that is just kind of a good hearty porter that for me would go well with your usual comfort foods.
Yeah.
Your kind of fall New England
Yeah.
stews and hearty, I don't know, cottage pies and things like
Yeah.
that, right? Just those hearty, stick to your bones kind of things. And
Yeah.
this is a little different. I think it is kind of like an after dinner beer,
Yeah.
to me anyways. I'd have not a knock on it, but if I were just kind of hanging out, having an evening or whatever with a couple of friends and grabbing some porters to bring along and to drink, pretty much for a night. Unfortunately, gotta take that away from. This is not what I would be bringing.
Yeah.
For that type of setting, it's a
Yeah.
great refreshing. It's a great sweet desserty beer, but
Yeah.
it's not your normal drinking porter for sure.
Yeah.
Very good though. I mean,
Yeah.
they balanced it. I think even with all those flavors, I don't want to sound like I'm knocking it too hard here. Even with all those different flavors, the cherry, the vanilla, the
Yeah.
coffee, all these different kind of things going on that we're talking about. I'd say between those, they did balance it well.
Yeah.
Nothing out of those is taking too much of the stage, I think, anyways.
Yeah.
They're all there and they're all kind of complementary, and I wouldn't say one of them's killing me. That it's. I'm not normally. We talked about this off camera a little bit, but we're both not huge fruit in beer kind of people at all. But hey, we'll be honest about it and evaluate them. But it's not like that. If there was too much cherry, it would really be bothering me, and it's not that. That's just what it reminded me of. But I think that's a smoky, coffee, vanilla-y kind of thing. All together kind of gives it almost a cherry kind of tinge. Do you have anything further to add? I know I just kind of rambled on that one, but there's a really interesting beer.
Yeah,
If
it's
you're into tasting stuff.
Yes, I do have to say, I
Roll it
feel
yourself.
I like it more than I thought I would. I like it more, even though I feel like, unlike all the other beers that we've had that I felt were pretty, hit all kind of sort of the the marks that you associate with a porter, even though this one's a little bit more different, I still feel like it works as a beer, even though maybe not quite as what you would if you wanted to get, sort of the platonic ideal of a porter.
Sure. Yeah, they did it well. I, for my taste, they certainly haven't ruled themselves out there. Yeah, another great beer. I don't expect any of these beers to get a particularly bad review. I know we're kind of doing this beer show and we're picking some decent beers to start with in terms of the breweries that we know we're choosing from. So I don't think you're going to find anything bad here. And if you just want to try something a little bit more interesting and out there and kind of off that porter path, then yeah, it's a great kind of dessert beer. So definitely a winner in that category. Although we'll see where it lands overall. I think we're gonna kind of shut the camera again for a bit, deliberate, and figure out the winners, and get back to you on any closing thoughts. And thanks for sticking with us. We'll be right back. All right, so we're back from our deliberations and all that, and we have the winners. I guess if you don't mind, I'll do the first pairing and kick it off, and we'll both jump in over each other as needed. So the first pairing, just a refresher, was the Kelsen Draken Robust Porter and a Stoneface Brewing Company American Porter Dark Ale. The winner is the Draken on that one for sure. That's the one to beat right now. In our whole day today, actually, they were a pretty strong contender, I'd say. I just want to give a couple highlights. I know we talked about this already when we did that individual beer, but the real big high points for me were its overall balance is very true to type, very drinkable beer. Not too many overly strong flavors. You could really just enjoy it, two or three of them. If you really wanted to. The one downside, and it's not a very strong downside at all, is the mouthfeel was a little bit more sticky than some of the other ones, but it was still very good. And it's not to give say it was bad. It's just we're trying to give a plus and a minus here. So I don't know what your thoughts on the Draken are on this.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing was that wasn't so much the weakness, except as much as the least strong strength.
Right, that's a better way of putting it for sure.
It's because it was really, really good. Definitely I felt the most balanced of all the ones we had, and just really a great example where it had some of the bitterness of the porter, but it had the strong sort of maltiness to sort of balance that out. And like you said, it was something that you could definitely. A lot of the darker beers are kind of the thing where you maybe just have one to finish off the end of the night, but that was one where I could definitely imagine having, multiples at one sitting.
Absolutely. So that was the winner. The Stoneface, which was the loser in there. Again, these are all great beers. We kind of self-selected good beers to start with. So it's, none of these don't take any of these as being a bad beer selection by any stretch. So my one minus there, it was really just the balance versus the Draken, and I guess that was really the big thing was just the balance and a little bit the aftertaste, mostly just the balance.
Because they were very similar beers in that they had all of the characteristics you would expect of a porter. I just felt that the Stoneface was a little bit just too bitter. Not to say that it was bad tasting by any means, but it just wasn't quite as crushable as the Draken. Still overall very good beer. You can't go wrong with drinking that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So we have our first winner there with the Draken from Kelsen. Good job, guys. So the next pairing would be the Night Shift over here, which is our Phone Home Peanut Butter Porter versus the 603 Coffee Cake Porter. And the winner there, again, we're both in agreement on this one. We didn't actually have to deliberate as much as we scored our sheets, and we came out the same way. So the winner there was the Night Shift. My pluses and minuses on that one, and again, we've said it a zillion times, the minuses aren't really minuses, it's just the one area for improvement, if you will, if it's possible. The night shift over the coffee cake was definitely more true to the style of a porter. And the one negative I had was the aftertaste. It did get a little more bitter once that initial peanut butter came off. You were left with a little more hoppy than malty in a way, although it was still very malty. It was just the aftertaste changed a little bit more to the bitter side. So that was the one downfall that I could point out.
Yeah, that was kind of, again, like these two beers, we kind of paired them off because they were both, they were porters, but they were kind of had a bit more exotic flavors. And, we kind of felt that just that, while they both tasted really well, the Phone Home was a little bit better, and also at the same time kind of seemed more like, had more of the characteristics of the porter. It seemed like, the peanut butter was kind of just sort of like a small addition. It didn't overwhelm the rest of the beer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the 603 was, there's a lot of different flavors, a lot of different types of sweet flavors. And, they weren't bad by any means, but they kind of just sort of, it would kind of changed it from being what you would normally think of as being a porter.
Yeah, I think we were definitely in agreement on there that it was a unique kind of porter if it's truly a porter, that being the coffee cake. And we were kind of chatting, and in some ways it's a dark brown ale in a way. It's that much on the sweet and not quite that traditional thick maltiness of the porter, and that's a lot of those complex flavors they throw in there. And the only other thing I'd want to mention there is it's a coffee cake porter, not a coffee porter. So I know there's coffee porters, of course. So there's a bit of a coffee-ish flavor to it, but you get more of that, the vanilla, the cherry that we talked about a little bit. Because coffee cake doesn't taste like coffee. Exactly. It goes with coffee. And that's kind of where you get that dessert beer thing closer to a bit of a brown ale than your traditional porter. So again, neither of these lost by much. So that's kind of where we ended up. Your opinions, of course, could be very, very different, but they're all great beers. If you haven't tried any of them, or your interest was piqued by any of what you've seen today, absolutely, any of these are a good recommendation for a beer to try if you haven't already. I guess I would just want to wrap up with our closing remarks. I think just thank you for watching this. Our very first episode here. Hope you liked it. If you like, comment, subscribe, share, do all those wonderful things that everyone tells you to do on the internet. That'd be awesome. We're gonna have some notes somewhere, depending on where and how you view this thing, regarding Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, email address. Eventually, we'll probably be on a podcast format as well. Not right off the bat, but hopefully if you're watching this, a handful of months in the future, then that's all squared away as well as we grow. And if you have any recommendations of what you want to see in this porter pour-off, absolutely. We are sticking ourselves to New England beers and breweries, so check that. I know there's plenty of good stuff on other places, but we wanted to keep it local so that we can draw some attention to these places, and also so we can go to the keep it in our own distance that we can go to and know we can find some great examples here. A lot of this stuff is hard to find when you're on the other side of the country. You're going to find they're big time, they're winners, they're really strong contenders, but you're not going to get that intimate knowledge of what's really out there right next door. I guess my only other thing is these are all really close for us anyways.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know where you are, but I'm in southern New Hampshire, Mark's in Massachusetts, and these are all places that beers you won't really see.
Yes, exactly.
In stores, but they're great stuff right in your backyard, and even to people in our areas, they're not necessarily well known. So that's one of the reasons we'll do this.
Yeah, it's very important to support the breweries that that are part of our local communities and employ people in our communities, and obviously it's also a time where these sort of smaller craft brewing places really need all the help that they can get to kind of help weather these times.
Yeah, a lot of keep in mind, guys, a lot of these places they sell for pretty reasonable prices when you're in their facility. They're not any more expensive than a decent beer is at most sit down, chain type or non-chain restaurants. In fact, a lot of times they're cheaper than that. And a lot of these places, I think, make a decent chunk of their cash. A lot of them have these restaurants and beer halls kind of attached to them. And if you've been in food service or kind of know that model, there's a lot of margin on the food side of things that I imagine probably helps these people kind of stick around. And with what's been going on for us, of course, that side has probably been a little rough. And if you're not going to make an outing out of it, people might be forgetting about some of these, especially the ones that aren't readily available in the stores, right? These we could always find at our local stores or our higher end beer stores. But for example, the Kelsen, I walked in there and grabbed it from them. Not the easiest thing in the world to find. So do yourself a favor, look up your local breweries. And yeah, send us your recommendations if there's something that fits the bill. And especially in the porter realm, we're not kind of going beyond that at the moment. We will in the future. But right now, it's a related topic. If you see this video or this blog post or whatever, feel free to kind of chime in with your 2 cents of what you think is a strong contender, and we'll give it a shot and we'll let you know what we think. Mm-hmm. And unless you have something else, I guess that's it for the night.
Yep. Nope. I hope you enjoyed the video, and cheers.
Cheers.